Kona Ice. Kona Ice is a shaved ice truck that brings a one-of-a-kind tropical experience to you. Guests can flavor their own Kona Ice on our signature flavor wave, dance to our island music tunes, and enjoy a nutritious and delicious treat. Contact Jeremy and Marissa at 352-403-0515. Don't forget to follow them on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Welcome back to another edition of the Goblay Show. I'm your host, Billy Goble, and today's guest is a special friend. He's a great friend, old friend of mine that I used to work with, and he is currently still at Disney, and he is a equity performer. And I don't want to give too much away, but I'm so glad to have him on today. And without further ado, I want everybody to, this is Mr. Mark Daniel. Mark, welcome to the Goblay Show.
Thank you very much, Billy, and it's an honor to be here on the Goblay Show. And you know what? You didn't give too much. I'm extreme. I want to know who it is. I want to know who this person is that you're interviewing. I'm curious now. It can't be me.
We're all on the edge of our seat, per se. Yeah. How are you, man?
Hey, I'm fantastic, man.
Awesome.
I've been very busy, and you know that because you have been chasing me down.
Yes, I have.
And I've canceled on you a few times.
Okay.
You've been busy yourself. Congratulations on your marriage, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you.
St. Augustine. I love St. Augustine, man. It's a beautiful town.
Yes. We had so much fun. It was hot. It was a little hot. It was in May. It was hot, but it was
the
nice.
pictures don't look hot. The pictures look amazing.
No, it does. You gotta make it look cool, man.
Definitely. But so we finally nailed it down, and I'm here, and I'm excited. Yeah. Excited to talk to you, man. Because like you said, we do go way back, man. Those days chilling at Epcot.
Hey, people have no idea how cool it was back in the day, man. Epcot was. I have talked about this on a previous podcast. When I first got hired at Disney, I thought Epcot was for the old people, man. They called it the retirement home, and they're like,
truly?
Yeah, and it really was because I mean, no offense to anybody that worked there before, but as I got there, the people who were like, "Hey, I'm going to Epcot," including one of the girls named Doris, Miss Doris. She's like, "Yeah, I'm going to Epcot." I'm like, "Well, you have fun because that sounds like a waste of my time right there," you know. So I went to Magic Kingdom, and man, was I wrong? I couldn't have been more wrong. It was so. Oh gosh, it was chaotic. It was so chaotic.
Yeah, man. Well, you know what's unique about Epcot? Like I never thought I'd work at Epcot. When I worked at the Magic Kingdom, and back when I worked at Disney, when I first started at Disney, yeah, you didn't have what they called cast zooming or global scheduling. You just worked in one park. That was it.
Yep. Me too.
So by the time I got to Epcot, there was global scheduling, they call it, where you can work at all parks. But I never thought I'd work at Epcot. But the unique thing about Epcot, you don't know until you work there, is all these festivals come through. It's this new energy, like, 3 times a year.
Yeah. And once you get prepared for one, and it's over with and you have time to breathe, here comes the other one. And you're like, all right, well, you got your flower and garden. You got your, what are the Eat to the Beat or was it?
To the Beat. Yeah. Food and wine.
Wine. There you
flower
go.
And garden, food and wine. You got Festival of the Arts.
That's right.
You got holidays around the world.
That was my favorite. Holidays around the world.
And then for a little bit, they had like flower power. It was something in between.
Oh, I do remember that.
Yeah. That flower power.
I do remember my mother and I would go see Davy Jones every year at
Flower Power, baby.
Yeah, Flower Power. That's right.
He was a favorite.
Oh my gosh, my dad was like, "Yeah, your mom's over there, like yelling."
And I'm like, her childhood, her teen years.
Going back to her teens. Oh man. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you for coming on to today. And man, I'm telling you, I do a pretty good job trying to pick out the good people that come on the show and the entertainment. You, my friend, are one of those guys that I've never seen upset. You've never been mad. And I mean, all those times in the UK break room, you were so funny. UK break room, American Adventure break room. Let's see, maybe in France. I don't know. I saw you everywhere, man. You were all over the place. And the guys and ladies and gentlemen that you had around you were just like, I mean, Disney knows how to pick their people. They really do. Karen, Lisa, Annie, Phil,
Eric, Art, Chris.
Yes. Yeah, Art. I forgot about Art. Yeah, Art.
Yeah.
So you guys were great.
Yeah, and just for your listeners to know, like, so we shared a break room. So I was part of what was called at Epcot, the Epcot Acting Company, and we did what we call street theater. So we were these equity actors. We had 3 shows that Billy mentioned. We had King Arthur and the Holy Grail in the United Kingdom. Yeah, you know, every time you say it, Grail, 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 huh. I haven't done that in years, Billy. That was a call and response thing we did in the show. So in the United Kingdom, we had King Arthur and the Holy Grail and A Christmas Carol during Christmas time. In France, we had Cyrano's de Bergerac. Right. And in, what else did you mention? We had France, UK. We had a show in Italy as well.
Yes.
Romeo and Edna. And yeah, so, you know, so we would share a break room because you were in entertainment as well.
That's right. That was one of my favorite things, is when we had everybody in there at the same time, and it was just a great time. It was just almost seriously like a fraternity, it was a brotherhood, or like just a group of people that could get together and just sit back and have a good time. We could laugh. Oh my gosh, I've never laughed so hard in my entire life. And I don't want to forget anything, especially for you, but we didn't mention the time at the Visa over in Tomorrowland with the bookmark. Mark the bookmark. Yeah. So this is my favorite story, man. I hate to come out of the gate with it, but I'm going to have to go ahead and do it, but so I don't forget. But I got to set this up. So Mark and a bunch of other guys who are people that were going to do this specific role are in the back of the room, and it's a soft opening. There's like 3-4 people in there. And I believe it was Phil. Phil's in there. He's dressed like a bookmark. Okay. Yes. And he's telling the story of Peter Pan. And he's like, he's in these theatrics, and he's like, and the story goes, and all of a sudden you hear the rooster crowing, and who was it? And he's waiting for the audience, the captive audience, to respond with Peter Pan, but nobody's paying attention. There's a mom breastfeeding like a child, like they're just enjoying the air, you know.
Right.
And it's dead quiet, and all of a sudden you're leaning up against Mark. I'll never forget this. You lean up against the and you're like, Peter Pan. And Phil looks at you. He's like, I know it's Peter Pan. I know, but do they know? So for the longest time, people, if I would see Mark, I go, Peter Pan. Just hilarious. It's just so fun.
That was so anytime if I heard Peter Pan in a deep voice, I knew it was Billy. Wherever he would see me, I just hear Peter Pan. So
be about behind in the parking lot or at the grill, the cafeteria, he'd be getting food like Peter Pan.
I knew it was Billy. Yes, and the truth is, you know what? I'm gonna embellish on that story a little bit. Okay. So this was like Billy said, this was a show, and usually Disney we would be part of these shows. So they had these little special shows for people that would pay with their credit card. So I think this was like it was called White Glove, and could be American Express, I believe. So if you use your American Express to book the vacation, you get these little treats. So these shows would change. I did one at Disney's Animal Kingdom, where if you pay with your American Express card, you'd have little hors d'oeuvres, and then I would introduce somebody who worked at the safari, and they would talk about what the safari was like. And a lot of the people in the beginning that drove the safari vehicles at Disney's Animal Kingdom were actually from countries in Africa. So they would bring that person in and they would be called a cultural representative. They'd bring in a cultural representative and you can ask them any question, what's it like living in your country? What are some of your traditions and things like that? And then they'd have a person from the safari talk about the animals. So this was another new show at Epcot. And you got to imagine on stage, there's this giant book and the actor is dressed like Billy said as a big bookmark. And the story is the book is closed, but then you can do different stories. So this was the opening, and the first story was Peter Pan. And like you said, there was like families sitting in there in the air conditioning, don't know what to expect. So all the other actors that are doing the show, we come to support Phil. Billy's there too, and we're all sitting back there watching. And Phil, the magic happens, the book opens, and this big bookmark comes out, and he starts telling the story. And it's very engaging. And it's for the kids to say Peter Pan. So he's telling the story like Billy said, and the windows crack open, bust open, and the wind blows in, and the shadow, and you hear the rooster crow, and who's in the window? And we're all into it. So I'm thinking everybody's going to say Peter Pan. Like I thought we were in it, right? We're all going to say Peter Pan. So I'm like, all right, let's all say it together. And I go, Peter Pan. But I was the only one that said it in the deepest voice ever. And everyone looked back at me and I was like, and that's when Phil was like, yeah. And I was like, well, it's Peter Pan, right? So that was the joke. I thought that it was going to be a chorus of Peter Pan, not a monologue.
Yeah, I have done that before in church where it's loud, and we're in the back and I'd be it was me and this other guy. We're sitting there and it's like I said, it sounded like a train station. It's like everybody's coupling, trying to get their seats and I'm like, and I'm ready to go. Like it's like, hey, it's time to start, And I went to say, I always like to say, let's light this candle. So. When I said let's, everybody just shut up. But I went, let's light this candle. So you got to be careful with that. You got to be careful. It will get you. But that is Mark. That is one of my favorite stories about you, man. It is so funny. And the best part was you were just so chill. You're like, Peter Pan.
Catfish Johnny's Restaurant, serving the Lake Pennsauken and surrounding areas since 1990. For the last 33 years, we have strived to serve great food at great prices and a friendly, casual atmosphere. If seafood isn't your thing, our burgers or wings are the best around. We have daily specials too. Check us out on Facebook or Instagram for more information.
Other than that, you've done so much. But before we get into like everything that you kind of did in the parks, I always like to go back with our guests and, kind of find out where they're from and see, just kind of get a little background on them. So, where did Mark grow up? Like, where did you come from, Mark?
That's a great question. Where did I come from? Well, I'll tell you where I came from. Not a lot of people know this, but people know it now, but you can't tell by looking at me. I was born in Trinidad and Tobago in the West Indies.
Okay.
So I was born in Port of Spain. I lived there till about, I believe I was about 11, 12, and then I moved to America.
Gotcha.
And then I moved straight to Florida. I moved to Tampa, Florida. Went to high school in Florida.
Well, I say that because you can't assume everybody's from Florida. Right. You know what I mean? Like, so you say, well, where are you from? And then they go, well, I'm from Toronto. You're like, oh my gosh, that's not even here. Like, that's not even us, but you said Trinidad, right?
Yeah, Trinidad and Tobago.
That's awesome. Yeah. So Tampa, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah. No worries. No, Tampa. But a lot of people be surprised because they'll say you don't have an accent. Interesting. Tampa, Florida. Went to high school there in Tampa, Florida. So it's basically right outside Tampa. So it's a place called Cessna, Florida. So it's like if you're ever driving down I-4 and you see those signs that say you'll go past Plant City, and you see Tenoda Sasa, and you see Cessna, Florida, and then you move on to get into Tampa.
Gotcha.
So that's where I went to. You can see my high school right off of I-4 if you are from the Orlando area and you take I-4 towards Tampa.
Very cool.
Armwood High School.
Okay. Yeah, I've heard of that. I've heard of that. And I've been to, you got to get on I-4 at least once, At
least once. Yeah. You don't want to, but you do. And you got to know you do a lot of sports. And I will say, not when I was going to high school and at that time, but they were pretty good at football. Armwood High School. They were they were really good. Like,
yeah, I've heard of that name before. So they've had some success and their
doesn't know me
sports.
though.
You're like, I was. You were too busy. You were too busy being the funny guy. I can tell. It was,
yeah, well, I was into, when I was in high school, I was really into editing. So I loved the arts. And so I really loved editing. Like, I love the magic of editing, like taking footage, raw footage, and putting it together and doing different angles and just giving energy to footage. So I really love that. And that's what I really wanted to get into.
Right.
Was the aspect of editing. And I was big into special effects makeup. So you're looking at, I was going to school in the 90s. So horror makeup was huge, like Freddy Krueger was big time.
Yeah.
Jason was big time. And the thing about these films, first of all, Nightmare on Elm Street was, everybody loved Freddy Krueger. Like you rooted for Freddy Krueger, right? He was this underdog. He was the villain, but everybody loved Freddy Krueger, and he had amazing makeup. Even like the Friday the 13th films, it was about, you didn't love Jason, but it was about how, I don't want to be graphic, but it was his kills, right? How gross could it look? But those were all effects, and that's what I loved. I love the effects of those things.
Right.
So in high school, I found a book called Dick Smith's Monster Makeup, and it showed you how you could do all these effects at home, and it just blew my mind. And I couldn't believe that, I could take latex and fake blood and gelatin and ping pong balls and all this stuff and create these amazing visuals of cuts and bruises and monsters and all that stuff. So
that's cool.
That's what I really wanted to do. So that was my drive into entertainment, was horror makeup and editing.
That's cool.
It was the magic behind the movies is what I was really interested in.
Right.
And that got me interested in working at Disney. It wasn't in entertainment. I was interested in working at Disney because I saw one of my favorite, Dick Smith was my favorite makeup artist. He's a makeup artist that did the effects for The Exorcist famously.
Oh, yeah.
And Stan Winston is also a huge makeup artist. He's known for doing The Terminator and The Predator, as you can tell, my favorite film of all time. And he worked at Disney. And one time I saw a picture that he made Goofy look like a Frankenstein. And then I was like, Disney makeup? But I didn't understand what Disney was. I thought Disney was Disney World, not the Disney company and movies and such. So I went to Disney to try to get into the makeup department. And they had a makeup department for parades, so that was that's what got me interested in working at Disney, was going into doing the makeup. And they were very friendly. They gave me a tour and everything. But unfortunately, the performers did their own makeup. There wasn't like a big makeup department. And I also was big into animation, like stop motion animation. So that's what I did in high school. I would make my own clay figures and animate them. And I actually won first place in a film high school film competition for my.
Oh, that's so cool! Yeah. That's awesome.
And then that was my next step into Disney, because at that time, Disney had done A Nightmare Before Christmas, and so I was like, I go to Disney and do stop motion animation.
Yeah.
But again, thinking that Disney is the parks and not the movies.
Yeah. And that's exactly how I got to Disney. Was I wanted to be. It started off, I wanted to be get into culinary and be a cook or a chef or whatever. And I did that a little bit in high school, and I liked it. It was something that because when you're 17, 18 years old, you don't really know what you want to do and stuff, and unless you really know what you want to do. But I was kind of like, like halfway there. So I was like, you know what, maybe, and I've always loved Disney because we were so close, being an hour away, growing up, we always went to Disney. And I'm like, that's gotta be a great place to work, because it's still open. I mean, they're doing something right.
Yeah.
And I just decided one day, I think I took a week when I graduated high school. I took a week off. I called it my backpacking through Europe. I didn't go anywhere, but that was my backpacking through Europe. kind of find yourself. And I was like, I can't do this. I'm just gonna, like, I think I went to Wet and Wild, and that was it. like one of those deals. Like, all right, I'm done. It's time to get a job. I'm tired of just doing nothing. So went to Disney, and when I got hired, it was, this, like you said, it was just you picked a park, and but they also let you pick your job, and so I got to do a little more homework on the culinary side. And I said, man, they wanted me to. Now, my first job was at McDonald's, and so I put a year in at McDonald's while I was in high school, like many other high school kids have done. And I just said, when they told me, yeah, you got to do outdoor foods, I'm like, oh, I don't want to do that again. Like, so that kind of deterred me from going further into that profession. So I said, well, what else do you have? And they said, we have entertainment. And I said, okay, well, I can't dance. I just can't dance. And they said, well, we haven't. I said, what is that character? At the time, we were greeters. What's that character greeter all about? And they're like, well, you can apply for that. And they said, that's just like a person that goes out with the characters. I'm like, that is exactly what I'm going to do.
There it is.
So I said, you made my choice for me. So, but I also wanted to go to Disney because I loved film, which I can totally relate to what you're saying as well. I was in video productions in high school and middle school and loved it. Loved working the camera. Not as much as being in front of the camera, which is a total 180 here, but all the behind the scenes stuff, the whole process. I've always wanted to get into motion pictures and doing my own thing. And so anyways, I went to Disney thinking, hey, I'll go work for, you grow up, you see all these productions, these Sunday night Disney, they go to the parks and all these 4th of July spectaculars and everything they filmed. Well, I didn't realize that it's all freelance. It's not them anymore. It used to be them. They had their own production company, and then that was when it kind of left Florida and it went to, it used to be the Triangle, and then I guess Vancouver now is the more, it's getting kind of coming back a little bit from what I've heard, but that's when everybody kind of went to Vancouver, and it was LA, Vancouver, and New York instead of LA, Orlando, and New York. So I'm like, well, I guess I'm in entertainment. That's exactly what I was shooting for. But it was just like, I had no idea the things that I was going to do or see, or the people I was going to meet. I had no idea. It was an amazing ride. It was just something I'll never forget.
Duto Realty is a homegrown business with an eye for getting the job done right. From football games to Sunday school and everything in between, these ladies care about our community and the people in it. Helping buyers and sellers in all of Florida with all types of transactions, including residential, commercial, farm, or vacant land. They do it all. They even offer auction services and sellouts to always get the job done right.
Going back to what you said about that your first job at Disney, what was the first thing when you got there? Because I always like to ask people when their first time working with a company, like what was the first memory you remember? Do you remember like your first encounter? Like, I would say traditions, but do you remember your traditions class?
I do. I loved it. I remember everything actually. If I remember so Disney came to my high school, right? And they were saying they needed basically just at that time they had what was called CR, right? CR was a casual regular, and casual regular worked during peak season.
Gotcha.
And you had CT was a casual temporary that worked on the weekends, but they kind of worked for the year. Casual regulars only worked during the peak season, and that was it. So they were looking for casual regulars. They wanted kids to work outside after school. And I was a junior at the time. And so the person was there, and they were like, had their little list of things you could do. And as a joke, I pointed at Goofy and said, I want to do that. And they were like, well, you can. Huh? They're like, you can. You can audition to be a character. And I was like, oh, really? So she gave me the paperwork, and I went and I convinced my parents that you got to drive me to Orlando to audition for this thing. And I auditioned, and like you, I couldn't dance either. So I was tearing everything up. I had like 3 left feet and a tail. Okay. It was bad. I was stepping on my tail. It was bad. But they kept me for my height because what they needed at the end was what we'll call canopy carriers for the electric light parade. So that was my first, I got hired, and that was my first job, was carrying the canopy in the electric light parade they had these dancers that would dance under this canopy of lights that we carried. And I was only supposed to do that during peak season, Fridays and Saturdays. And our first memory was walking down the street when I got the job, doing the parade, and seeing so many happy people and so many people taking pictures. And it was back in the day, it was pictures like this.
Yeah. The old fun saver.
Yeah. So each picture had to be, it was deliberate. You know what I mean? Because you only got 16. You can't be like, no. You know,
you made it count. Yeah.
You had to make it count. But it just took me, it just really got me, I just felt so good to make so many people happy. And they didn't care who I was. They didn't care what I looked like. There was all these different families. Everybody's happy. I waved at everybody and I really enjoyed it. And from that point on, I said, you know what? I think I want to stay here. This is where I want to be. And this is the energy I want in my life. And I stayed there and I kept working hard. I couldn't dance. So I began to focus on my animation skills, and you know what that is, but for your viewers out there, animation skills, if you can't dance in your character, then you work on your miming skills. And if you get really good at it, you get a high score. And that means that now you're not a dancing character, but you can mime things so you can bring the character to life. So you're going to be on set. If we have any filmings, you're going to be part of that. So I really gain my skills in being able to animate and move like the character.
Yeah.
And then from there, I went to Disney's Hollywood Studios because they had shows that didn't need dancing characters. And because at Magic Kingdom, all the characters, if you were in a show, you had to dance.
Right.
You know, because there was music and dance numbers and different things like that. But at Studios, they had Sweetums, which was a show, which is a Muppet show. Sweetums is a giant Muppet. He needs to be at least 6 feet tall. And Beauty and the Beast live on stage, where the Beast doesn't dance. He just has to animate and bring the Beast to life. So I set my goals on moving to that part and really working on that. And then from there, years and years, working on those skills, I got a shot at auditioning for the acting role. Disney's Animal Kingdom was opening, and they needed younger looking actors. And I went and auditioned and got the part of a Dinoland grad student. And that was my first acting job. I moved from characters into equity acting role and opened Disney's Animal Kingdom. And they sent us to Canada to dig up dinosaurs and learn about dinosaurs and come back. And we created shows about dinosaurs for kids.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then
I had no idea.
To Epcot.
I know. I was like, I got the part 2. I didn't get the part 1 of Mark. I didn't meet you till
you met me at Epcot. Then I got to Epcot. That's when I met one of my best friends, Lisa Sleeper, who you know very well.
Yes.
And got to learn everything. I learned basically everything at Disney. I learned how to animate. I learned how to act. I learned how to speak, professionally. All these things are skills I gained doing these different jobs. And then the biggest thing I learned was performing in what I mentioned earlier. Was in street theater with 3 other actors telling a story, bringing guests into the show and giving them characters and animating with them and making them laugh. And those shows were very popular, especially the one in the United Kingdom. And got to work with some very talented actors. Again, like I said, one that stands out the most is Lisa Sleeper. I learned so much from her. Phil was awesome. Art, all these amazing actors. There's too many to name, but each person brought something that you could learn from.
Pat's Taps at Catfish Johnny's. Pat's Taps is Lake Pennsaukena's newest tap room, offering 14 rotating craft beers on tap. We also offer bottled domestic beers, seltzers, ciders, and wine, as well as a variety of appetizers and puff. Our family-friendly tap room is a great place to come hang out and enjoy some one-of-a-kind craft beer. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, or the Untapped app.
One of the things I noticed when I first got there was, and I still to this day, I always pointed out, I was like, man, these guys are really professionals. Like, they really are good at what they do. And like I said before, Disney knows how to pick them. I mean, they don't just put any Joe Schmo out there on the street and go, all right, you think you could do this?
Yeah, yeah.
No, they know what you can do before you even do anything, and it's amazing how you guys professionals. That's what I would always say that professionally, you guys do it just, and it seems so flawless. So you guys are just like the comedy. Now I know you guys if you do one of those shows like the UK, the Camelot one, you guys are doing it 4 or 5 times a day, and by the time you do it the 5th time, you're like, man, I got this, and you could do it in your sleep. I realized that when I started doing, I was over there with Merlin.
Okay.
And I was pulling the sword out of the stone in my sleep. I was the selecting rod. And I mean, I could go back and do it today. The same thing with in the library with Bell. I could do that show. It was a 12-minute show. I could do it blindfolded in my sleep, no problems. And I could go back today. I hadn't done it in probably 10 years. I could go back today and still do it. It's just engraved in your brain.
It's like in Muppet Vision, right? So Sweetums, we prepare to go out because, if you've ever seen Muppet Vision 3D, you don't know Sweetums is in the show until Bunny runs away. And then he comes out looking, and he comes out with his little paddleball, boom, 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 boom. Hey, I'll go find him. And he comes into the audience looking for Bunny. So your prep time is when Miss Piggy starts singing that Mamas and the Papa song, sun shining bright above me. So that's when you start getting dressed. And I'm telling you, Billy, when I hear that song, like I stand up to get dressed to this day. Like it's like you hear that song and it's like your muscle memory is like time to get dressed, time to make the donuts.
Yep.
So yeah, you have this muscle memory of like when you get used to something, it's just trained.
Yeah, and I not gonna lie, Muppets is my favorite. We were just there last weekend, and definitely had to do Muppets. It was a must. And it's not just the show, it's the pre-show, it's the show, it's everything. It's been a classic. I saw on it was probably clickbait, but I saw on Google, the algorithm. I must have been looking up something with Disney or getting ready to go. And they said that Muppet Vision 3D should be a historical, not monument, but a historical show. Like they should never get rid of it. And I'm like, I agree.
I think so too. And I think I saw the same thing, that it's they call it a historical site, because it is true. Because like, if you're a Muppet fan, and I do for my social media, I do Fun Mark Daniel Nerd Facts, right? So I get really deep into Disney lore and the Imagineering stories and stuff like that. But the truth is, I'm a little biased because I did Sweetums, but I think they should never get rid of Muppet Vision 3D. That is our It's a Small World. That is our Spaceship Earth. Because what you have is a show directed by Jim Henson.
Yeah.
You have a time capsule of the Muppets that we grew up and loved. Yep. And it's the only place you can actually sit inside the Muppet Theater that we watched on TV every single time. The Muppets were in the Muppet Theater. How many times did you just want to be in that chaos when you watched the Muppet Show in the theater, and Statler and Waldorf are over there in the balcony seats, being doing their critiques and just the craziness in the Muppet Theater. And like you said, even the pre-show area is like Jim Henson comedy. Because I grew up in Trinidad. Jim Henson is my Walt Disney.
Yes.
Because I watched the Muppet Show in Trinidad. I was like one of I watched Sesame Street in the daytime because I came from America. And on Thursday nights, I remember I was allowed to watch the Muppet Show. It came on at night. And that was my childhood. Like, that's what I remember watching on television, was Sesame Street and the Muppet Show. I felt like an adult getting to watch it, like at whatever time it came on. And I just feel like you have the original voices. The sense of humor is there. And I just feel like it is important to keep that time capsule of vision of Disney and Jim Henson together. Because I don't think, it's just And nothing else to say, but it's a time capsule.
For almost 30 years, 75 Chrome Shop has been a family-run business with a dedicated team of longtime employees. We stay ahead of the curve in the ever-changing trucking industry, providing top-notch customer service and product knowledge. Whether you're looking for the latest chrome accessories or hard-to-find parts, we've got you covered. We offer aftermarket chrome for all big rigs, custom vinyl lettering, acrylic signs, and tags. Our 10,000 square foot facility, the oldest chrome shop in the South, houses a mechanic shop for oil and tire changes and chrome installation. Plus, we have a huge selection of lights for every vehicle on the road. Don't miss our annual truck show every April featuring over 200 trucks and family-friendly entertainment. Visit 75 Chrome Shop today, your truck's new best friend.
A lot of people, when they discredit Jim Henson because they think Muppets are for kids, but that wasn't the case. The Muppets were not meant for kids. Literally, I mean, they were the first Muppet show was sex and violence, and it was for adults. They needed an adult. It was on SNL. They had skits on SNL. It was not meant specifically for kids at first. They adapted. That's why they had the Sesame Street.
Yeah.
But I thought it was always so cool that he was such a visionary. Like he was, like you said, when I was a kid, I remember when he passed away in 1990, I was in second grade. And I remember I thought, here I am 8 years old. I'm like, Kermit's dead. Like Jim died, but Kermit died too. Like I was just like, even at 8 years old, you don't really have the concept that you don't grasp of the whole death thing. But I understood that this guy's not coming back. We'll never see this guy again. And we may see Kermit, but it won't be the same. And I don't know why I understood that, but I did. It was like,
you have to understand at that age.
It was a very humbling experience, even at that age. I mean, it was. Yeah. But a funny thing, I'm sure you have, because you're another fan. But did you watch the documentary that Ron Howard did on him?
Yeah, Idea Man. I sure did.
Yes. So one of the things I thought was really cool, and I had posted on my social media, was, this is a guy who brought these characters that are very loved by so many people, not just Americans, but all over the world. And the interview with Orson Welles, where Orson says, "So how long have you done puppetry?" And he said, I didn't really do puppetry when I was a kid. Like he was expecting to be like, since I was 5, I made puppets out of this. He never did that. He was like, and he's looking at the camera, and he's got, and I didn't know Orson Welles, but you could tell he's got this look on his face like, are you kidding me right now? You have the most successful puppetry in America or in the world, and you never did this as a kid. This is remarkable. It's amazing. But I just thought that was a cool thing that I never knew that, and that just makes it even better. Like, you don't have to be good at something in order for you to make something great.
Yeah, I think what I got from that too is like, you never really know your path. Like if you watch, I have a lot of Jim Henson books, and he was like, that was an ends to a means. He was like, he did commercials. He really wanted to get into television, but
television bad.
The puppet stuck.
Yeah,
and he never planned on it. But look at this, man. He didn't create Sesame Street, but they brought the Muppets onto that show, and it changed the game, right? Because it was like, I don't know if you know the story. Sesame Street was just supposed to happen, and they would have segments with Muppets, with Muppets, and the Muppet sections was rating higher for the kids.
Gotcha.
To the point where like they were like, no, make it puppets and have the humans come in.
Yeah,
and so they changed it, and the kids liked. And when you wanted to be on Sesame Street, you had to audition with the kids, and the kids talked to the puppets like they were, and it's still a little different now, I notice. And what's interesting is that I've noticed kids don't get puppets now. And they don't get puppets now because they are used to, this is a generation, and not just this generation, but even like, the generation before and decade before and a decade before, I'd say 3-4 decades, they're used to computer generated imagery.
Right.
So they're not used to puppets. Puppets, they don't get puppets, or puppets have to be different. Like they can't really buy, Jim Henson with Kermit on his hand. We would just look at Kermit, it's like, yeah, it's Kermit. Kids be like, because they're used to more, a different kind of magic is the best way to put it. Nothing bad, nothing good. It's just a different kind of magic. So I noticed that it's, but I still love puppets and puppets are changing too, right? Puppets are, even animatronics are puppets, right? If you're controlling it, if you're controlling the animatronic, it's a puppet. So.
Well, what's funny is you brought, you're talking about Jim and how he would, you wouldn't look at Jim, you'd look at Kermit, and it was so funny. You can see these old videos. He could be sitting right next to a child, and they don't even see him. They're like, "Who's this guy over here?" Like, excuse me, we're having a conversation over here. Can you? Yeah, but that's the way why it went so well. He sold it. It's like it was just remarkable. But the way the generations adapted to that, and I think he knew that as well. He knew he was going to have to get into computers, and he had the technology he had right before he passed was like night and day difference from Sam and Friends when he first started off in like the 50s.
Definitely. Let's talk about technology. Let's talk about again. Let's go back to the time capsule in Muppet Vision 3D. Waldo is a computer generated puppet. I mean, he had that technology in Muppet Vision 3D where you would animate Waldo, but in computer world he moved,
right?
And he was a straight up puppet, so that was groundbreaking back then. So to your point, and look at the puppets for that series. So the prequel, I believe, or the continuation of Dark Crystal that was on Netflix. Is it the prequel or? I
don't think it's. I think
it's a continuation.
It might be a continuation because I'm not 100% sure, but
no matter what, I loved it, and it was. I mean, the puppets are just next level.
There's a funny video. I saw it on YouTube once, and again, when this happened, I wasn't old enough to stay up and watch it. But it was Jim Henson on Arsenio Hall, and and Arsenio has Ralph the dog, and he's like Ralph, did you hurt yourself? Because he's got his arm in the sling.
Yeah,
he's like, well, the puppeteer has two arms, and you got this hand, you got this hand. And it just he cocks it to the side, and it wasn't Jim, it was Rolf talking, and he didn't get it at first, and he's like, oh, the arm has to be in the sling because you only have two hands to operate it. Now, and it was so funny when he got it. He was like, it was like a switch. He was like, oh, but he's like, got this arm here, arm here.
Yeah. And I remember that. That was very funny.
Just so nonchalant. It was hilarious. But Jim Henson was also an innovator, just like Walt Disney, and I love that the two finally somewhat combined. But even though I did hear that it was there was a lot on Jim. I don't think he really wanted to as far as what I've seen, it kind of they said it was really heartbreaking for him to kind of merge. It's like he kind of sold out, but he didn't. Do you know what I'm saying?
I was, from being part of the Disney Muppet side. It was tough. I mean, we got, when he sold to Disney, this is, and anytime you sell anything to Disney, it's sad because you sell it, right? Yeah. Star Wars was sold, you sell it. So now it's not owned by the owner anymore.
Right.
And so, but that's why I said again, I'm going to go back to it one more time. That's why we have to cherish Muppet Vision 3D.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think, and I'm giving you an example because there were two shows, right? There was Muppet Vision 3D, but then there was Muppets, this is before I went to the studios. When I went to the studios, they had Muppets on location.
Yeah, the
live show.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But before that, in the Mermaid Theater, where the Voyage of the Little Mermaid was, they had, I don't remember the name of it, but there was a Muppet show indoors. And that was, again, I don't know the name of it because by the time I got to studios, they had the other show.
Right.
But I don't think Jim Henson liked the full-sized Muppets.
Yeah.
But Disney bought it and they were going to use them. So I don't think they were his favorite. He didn't really like the design of the big Muppets, but they weren't his anymore.
Right.
So they worked together. So, but yeah, that is, but who knows what could have happened if Jim survived?
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. And that's the thing is you just never know what would have Walt Disney done if he lasted 10 more years? What would he come up with? Like he never got to see the Magic Kingdom open or Walt Disney World itself open. And it's, you get what you got. And a lot of people see things that others don't get to see and vice versa. I mean, but I mean, and that's just life. I mean, you get to where you're trying to, you think you gotta, just when you think you got a grasp on something, you don't, and I just like, as a fan, I think, well, when I was in Traditions, they asked, who would you like to meet if you dead or alive, who could you meet? Well, a lot of people were saying, a lot of people were like, trying to make their like Walt Disney. I'm like, oh, bravo.
You're right. You're in the right place.
I said Mr. T. If I could meet anybody, I mean, that was Mr. T. I mean, I know he's not dead, but I'm just saying, like, I was like, Mr. T. And they're like, I don't know about
like, you mean Mr. Toad? No, Mr. T. Mr. Timon? No, Mr. T.
Yeah, no, the real Mr. T, outside, And I'll never forget that. Everybody's like, Walt Disney, Uncle Walt. And I'm like,
Uncle Walt.
Bravo.
You know what? I got one on you now.
Go ahead.
Not when you hit me with the Peter Pan, I'm going to hit you with the Mr. T.
Mr. T. I pee the food.
Whether your water is supplied by a public municipality or a private well, for residential or commercial use, Purified Water Services LLC has the solutions to provide you with simply clean water. We offer a complete line of professional water filtration equipment and accessories. Soft water makes a difference you can see and feel. Water heater and appliances last longer with less maintenance. Iron and H2S filters eliminate iron stains and offensive rotten egg odors and protects your water softener equipment from iron fouling. No matter what your problem is, Purified Water Services LLC has a solution. Contact Kenny Williams at 352-446-2709.
Nah, man, Mr. T, man, when I was growing up, Mr. T was
Listen, man. When I was growing up, my cousin had the Mr. T doll.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. I was like, what? My mom went by. He had the Mr. T doll, had the shoes on, had the chains, had the little feathers hanging from the air. He had the Mr. T doll, man. Let me tell you something. That Mr. T doll was the bomb. Like, you had the Mr. T doll. And then I had another friend of mine who had the Mr. T workout set. There's all these like little barbells and stuff. I mean, they were light, they were for kids, but they had like the little pads on them.
They're plastic.
And let me tell you something, Billy. I had the Mr. T board game. Listen, there was a Mr. T board game. He was like on the cover, and he wasn't on the board game. It was hilarious. You would play as the members of the A team, but he was like this invisible force. So like when you flipped a card, it would say, Mr. T shoves you 3 paces. Like it was like that. It was like you couldn't play him.
They couldn't get the copyright.
Yeah, he would just like be the action. You're probably right that he didn't have the copyright for him, but it would be like, Mr. T shoves you 3 spaces. Mr. T tells you to go back to the front. It was funny.
Well, you know what's funny about that? Same in a weird way, the same thing went with, you couldn't play with Michael Jordan on a basketball game for the first like back in the 90s and 80s. They didn't have copyright. They would not. He's the only player, like Jordan versus Bird. I'm not Jordan versus Bird. Bird versus Magic, or whatever game that was. Jordan's not on that game. Jordan was not on those games at all. It was, they had to you had to make him, and he was like, it was like you were in what was that, Dr. Monroe's Island? You were just making your
Island, Dr. Monroe, yeah.
Yeah. You were making your own guy, your own specimen, and he looked nothing like him. You're like, well, at least he's 6'6", That's I got that part down. But that's hilarious. I don't know. But I also from time to time I do browse through Facebook and stuff, but did you ever do a stint at? Did you go to what's the name of the place? The SAC Comedy Club.
I do. Yeah.
So you and I have some common ground.
Oh, really?
Because I took classes at SAC.
Okay.
Yeah. I just took one semester, but
okay. You're still an alumni, man.
Oh yeah. I was I think this guy named Charles
Fryman.
Yes, he looked like Crazy
Harry. Hair?
Yes, he looked like Crazy Harry from the Muppets.
Straight up. That's literally Charles is Crazy Harry carrying dynamite.
I hope.
And the boomerang fish. Yes, that is Charles Fryman.
Or Dora. Remember Dora from Epcot?
Yeah, Dora. That could be his mom, right?
Yeah, Charles is my teacher, man.
Oh, man. Hey, listen, we came up together, man. Charles and I, we did what was called at the time lab rats at SAC. So I took classes as well. And then when you take classes and you get into shows, you become a lab rat. And Charles and I were lab rats together. And yeah, I'm doing 2 shows tomorrow at SAC. They've moved here in Orlando. SAC is improv comedy here in Orlando with alumni like Wayne Brady, Jonathan Magnum, and Dave Russell, and many people that have gone on to do some amazing things. Charles is a real cool dude, man.
Charles was awesome. First time meeting him, I'm like,
yeah. He's crazy.
Yeah, he
looks crazy. He actually looks crazy, but he's not.
But he's a really, in all seriousness, he's a really nice guy. He was so genuinely nice. I've never met anybody. I mean, he was really nice. But that first time, you're looking for the dynamite. You're like,
yeah. And let me tell you something else. He still looks the same.
No way.
He still looks the same. If you see him right now, you'd be like, you think you're in class.
That was 2008.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. He looks the same.
Good guy though. Great guy.
Yeah. We had our own, back in the day when we were lab rats, we would put together our own little improv troops and go out and do our little shows. And we had, I was in a group, we put a group together, me, Charles, and some other friends. But yeah, Charles was a lot of fun, man. Charles, some of my fond memories when I was coming up was with Charles.
What is it like when you get to work with guys like Charles and Phil and all the and Lisa and all the great cast that you got to work alongside with? What is that like? I mean, you get to go to work and just basically, like I said, everybody, these people are so funny that we're in the break room. They're not doing jokes and we're laughing the entire time. It's just I guess it's like a green room at a comedy show. You're telling jokes backstage and then you're getting ready to tell jokes on stage. It's the same deal. Yeah.
Well, the difference is that we had good chemistry on stage, but a lot of us, we were friends as well.
Yes.
So, you're working with some very professional people. And we know we have a job to do just like anything else. And when you have that camaraderie and that thing in common where you're for Disney, we feel we're making magic, right? We're making people happy. We have a show going on. And sometimes it's bad shows. Sometimes you might have a bad day, an off day, or you have an argument with somebody. Sleeper and I were the best of friends and we could argue too. Yeah. But I think we were friends and just happy to be there, So I think just talking backstage and stuff, we weren't trying to be funny. We were just being ourselves. And being ourselves was funny, you know, and we were just, and I think even with you, like I said, you said, man, I couldn't stop laughing, but we're laughing at you too. I think we were just, it was just a time that we were just happy to have the jobs we had.
Yeah.
We could see that what we were doing was beneficial to the people that bought the tickets to come to the park.
Right.
We felt we were making a difference. We felt important.
Promotional consideration paid for by the following. Webster Ace Hardware and Farm Supply are generous sponsors for today's podcast. They have been a family-owned business for 27 years. This helpful hardware store sells items such as archery, Ariat clothing and boots, Wrangler jeans, case knives, Hammond's candies, and live fishing gear. They also have a full selection of hardware, RV supply, propane, Ben Moore, Royal & Clark, and Kingston paints. You need a barn or fencing job done? Custom barn kits and roofing metal are provided at your local Ace Hardware store. What about a new grill for the yard? Traeger, Big Green Egg, Weber, and Blackstone are found here, along with all the accessories to go with them. Stock up your workshop with DeWalt, Milwaukee, or Craftsman tools. They got you covered. Remember to go to ace.com to shop their entire line to have items shipped directly to the store.
You know, that's one of the reasons why it was hard to leave, because I left in 2016 at the end of the year. And so it was super hard to walk away. But I had finally gotten a job that, you know, I could see myself retiring with and, you know, proceeding to do that. And I just got to where, man, you like when we went to Hollywood Studios the other day, I came in and I know things have changed, you know, because that's just the way life goes. I didn't see anybody I knew, literally. I mean, it was a little sad, but that first, when I walked through the gate at Hollywood Studios, I just said, man, in my head, I'm like, I'm home. Like, it didn't matter if it's Hollywood Studios. Now, Animal Kingdom, I wasn't really a big fan of going to, but I would still go, but it's still a nice park. I just didn't have a good time there, and I did not want to work there because it was so hot. But Epcot, every time I go to Epcot, man, I had the biggest smile on my face. I'm like a little kid. And people like you and everybody that made it enjoyable that was the reason why I stayed so long. I remember like 3-4 years into my career there, I'm like, I'm thinking about getting another job, but I don't want to leave. Like that was my I was in limbo because I'm like, I want to do something, like I want to be happy. And I was happy, but I didn't enjoy driving an hour there and back every day, you know, and there was no way I could, you know, afford a house or something, you know what I mean? Like it just didn't work out. But to this day, I would tell everybody, they're like, when they say, did you like working at Disney? I'm like, oh yeah, absolutely. Like I always tell them this, I would do it again in a heartbeat without doubt. I would just do it all over again. If I could go, even the bad times were not as bad as, you know, that we make it out to be. You know, are they really bad times? You know, when you're having a bad day, is that really, are you really having a bad day, or are you just saying you're having a bad day? I mean, could it be worse? I'm sure. But we just assume we're having a bad day. We're having a bad day. You know what I mean? It's just, I don't know. I miss it. I really do. I miss the people that I worked with. And, of course, I know that you'll never get the same people in the same room ever again at the same time. But it was just a special time. It was very special. And the shows that were written were well done. I mean, even if you guys weren't doing World Showcase Players and you guys were doing your characters and stuff, and they gave you so much range to do whatever you wanted to do to make it work. I don't feel like, even though I wasn't in that predicament, I don't feel like they had you tied down. I felt like you could expand your horizon and just do whatever you felt like that character needed to be. What did you think?
Yeah, you're right. We had the freedom to do it. We had a trust as well.
Yeah.
And we also had, you know, we had good direction from our show directors, right?
Yes.
Come and talk to us about, even if we wanted to develop some characters, because that was unique to Epcot. We had a point in time where we were starting to develop characters to go out one at a time. So we didn't do the ensemble of 3 people. And that was some good exploration because it helped when, we went to a lot of the actors moved to Disney's Hollywood Studios where you did have to be those singular characters. Or when I came from a singular character place from Disney's Animal Kingdom where I had an ensemble, but you also had to develop a personal character to go out and do 30 minutes by yourself.
Did you ever get to do the holidays around the world? I don't. What you got to refresh my memory. There were so many things what did you do at holidays around the world?
So holidays around the world. The first time I ever did it, I was one of the 3 kings. But then after that,
that's right.
And then after that, they had the story of Kwanzaa. So that was a storyteller. Now it's changed because Kwanzaa is a little bigger. They wanted to give it more of a show element because it's about a lot of creativity. So now it's not just one actor. It's more of a presentation. It's a show. There's songs. So it's a bigger celebration now than when I did it. So it's a little different now. But yeah, it's still great to see holidays around the world.
Yeah, I remember being in France. I was with Belle and Beast, and I've said this story before, but I love it. You have a set time, so you're out for 20, 30 minutes, and it's when it's time to go, you gotta do what you gotta do to get off stage. And sometimes, you have people that are the word no does not exist. So you kind of make your own way of getting your characters offset. So I used to say. I would like look around like I was a spy, and I'd go, Père Noël, who was the Santa Claus in France. Père Noël has candy, and it was Eric Pender. So we come back to the trailer, and we were just hanging out, and Eric comes to the door, and he's so mad. He goes, "Who is telling them that I have candy?" And I start dying. And he goes, "Dang it, Billy." He's like, "They keep hitting me up for candy." I was like, "Guys, I have no candy." But he's got that bag. So it smells like I got to look. He's got the bag. Go find Père Noël that's got the bag on his shoulder. He's got chocolates in there. And oh my gosh, you talk about hilarious. So fun. It's just, even with stuff like that, like even though I never got to be a showcase player or equity or a Streetmosphere guy, I would do my own thing. Like that was my own thing. I was my ad lib. Like, hey, I got to get out of here. How do I get out of here? Well, Père Noël has candy.
And I'm out. And I can hear Eric saying that too. I can hear Eric. Who's doing that?
And for those who don't know Eric, he looks like Ryan Stiles.
He does.
From the Drew Carey Show.
Speaking of that, Eric has directed a Fringe favorite, Cocaine Bear, the opera.
Oh, yeah, I like it. I like it.
A lot of big accolades for this last Orlando Fringe.
All right, man. Mark, I appreciate you. Thanks for coming on. I just, like I said, I love talking to you about the good old days, and we'll have you on again if you don't mind.
I'd love to come on, man.
Go further into the world of equity.
Yeah, definitely, man. I'm doing a lot of other things, so I'd love to come back and talk about them.
All right. Well, guys, this has been another edition of the Goblay Show. Our special guest was Mr. Mark Daniel. Mark, man, again, thanks for coming on. And until next time, we'll see you down the road. Bye, guys.